Thank you, Miss Abby and Mr. Rocky, for being prepared today for class. You know, we've been talking about the GI system, and what we're going to do today is put some of the things we've learned together to make actual words. We've already talked about the anatomy, and we've gotten some of those little parts of the words related to the anatomy. Well, now we're going to put them together, and we're going to create some surgical terms for the GI system. All right, you guys ready? All right, what we're going to do first is review the suffixes to do with surgery. These we did at the beginning of the semester, so it's just recalling them. The first one is ectomy, which means excision or removal of something. The next one, stomy. This one's a little bit harder to understand, and hopefully I can explain it to you better, but surgical creation of a new mouth or opening. Okay, just hang on to that, and we'll explain a little bit more here in a minute. Plasty. If you think about it, when somebody has plastic surgery, they're going and they're reconstructing. So when we put plasty in the word, it's surgical repair or reconstruction of something. And the last one is scopy. A scope is something you use to look through, like a microscope or the scope on your gun. You use it to look at something. When we put a Y at the end of it, it turns into a process of viewing. All right? Got those. Now these are ones that we went over a day or so ago when we were talking about the basic anatomy. The first one has to do with the appendix, and it's appendo. Then we have pharyngo, and if you remember, pharynx is the medical term for the throat. So pharyngo has to do with the pharynx. Then we have palato. And if you remember, the roof of our mouth is called the palate. And so palato is referring to the roof of your mouth. Colono and colo both refer to the large intestine or the colon. Sometimes they'll call it either one. Gastro, that has to do with the stomach. Like when we have gastritis, it's inflammation of the stomach. So that's where gastro is. Jejunum, we have three parts of the small intestine. There is the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. Jejunum is referring to the second part of the small intestine. All right, take a deep breath and let's put some of these words together. All right, the first one is we're going to take appendo and ectomy, and we're going to create the word, say it, Mr. Rocky.
Appendectomy.
Appendectomy, which is what?
The removal of your appendix.
The removal of your appendix. And I understand you've had that done, correct?
Yes.
So you know what that is. We're taking that little tissue off that's at the end of the cecum, and we're going to take it out. Appendectomy. Very good. The next one is a scopy. Do you remember what a scopy was, Miss Abby? No, this one is process of viewing. Okay, remember the scope? We look and we're going to look. The colono is the large intestine. So this one here is, we're going to look into the large intestine. We want to see what's going on in there. Colonoscopy. All right. Then, now you're right on this one, Abby. Tell me again, what's the palato? The roof of your mouth. And do you remember what plasty was? Plasty. Plastic surgery is when they fix something. So it's surgical repair reconstruction. So palatoplasty is fixing the roof of the mouth. Sometimes little babies are born with what we call cleft palate. It's where their palate has a space in it. It's did not form all the way together. So we do a palatoplasty to make that close so that the baby can eat normally. That's palatoplasty. All right, we're going to complicate this word just a little bit. We had palato, and if you remember what pharyngo was, it's the throat. So now we got, look at that big long word. Palatopharyngoplasty. But if you remember, the word just before was palatoplasty. That's where we fix the roof of the mouth. So now we're just going to add the throat in there. We're going to fix the roof of the mouth and the palate. Sometimes people who have sleep apnea have too much tissue in their mouth and throat. So they're going to go in there and take some of that tissue out so that they can breathe better. Palatopharyngoplasty. All right. Now, remember a stomie over here is the creation of a new opening. And you remember colo was the colon. So a colostomy is the creation of a new opening into the colon. Well, that sounds kind of weird. It's like, because we know what goes in, it's got to come out somewhere. So what we're going to do with this colon is we're going to take it and we're going to open it to the outside of the body. Usually they'll do it along in the abdomen area. And they call it a colostomy. All right? So you've got that. Taking the colon and we're opening to the outside of the body. Now, this one here, if you remember, gastro is stomach. So we're making a new opening of the stomach to the outside of the body. But that sounds kind of weird, doesn't it, Abby? What are we going to do in a gastrostomy? You know about this, don't you? Why would we do a gastrostomy? Can you tell me? You can't tell me? You put in a, what did you have when you were a baby?
A tube in my stomach.
Right, a tube into your stomach so that you could eat, right? So they could give you food. That's what this is. We're making a new opening of the stomach to the outside of the body so we can put in that feeding tube. Right, very good. Okay, so remember stomach is the creation of a new opening. Now, this gets even a little more confusing. We have that gastrostomy, which we talked about was into the stomach, but now we're doing the jejunum. And if you remember, the jejunum right here is the second part of the small intestine. What we're doing in this one is we're making an opening of the stomach. My hand here is going to be the stomach. This is going to be the second part of the small intestine. We got an opening here and an opening here. Well, the intestines are this big long tube. We don't want to leave them open to the stomach, so we're going to connect the two of these. We're going to connect the stomach with the second part of the small intestine. And this is one of the surgeries they call gastric bypass because we're actually bypassing part of the stomach. And we're bypassing part of the small intestines as well. So gastrojejunostomy. All right. Now I'm going to teach you another word. Anastomosis. That's a big word to say, anastomosis.
Anastomosis.
Anastomosis. Very good. It's kind of a hard word to say. What this is connecting the two ends of things that are normally not connected, but we're putting them together. They use this term a lot in surgery. So, that word we just did, gastrojejunostomy, normally those aren't connected, so we're going to connect them. Well, we can also call this gastrojejunal anastomosis. All right? Why they have two terms for the same thing, I don't know. Maybe they got tired or bored or something, and so they decided to come up with these two. So when you see either one of these, you know they're doing the same thing. They're taking the stomach, the jejunum, and putting them together. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you one that sounds even crazier. The jejunum is this long piece of our second part of our small intestine. Okay? It's really long. It's like about 8 feet, 10 feet long. And on a jejunostomy, well, jejuno and jejunum are the same thing. That doesn't make any sense. What we're doing is we're taking that long piece, and maybe there's an ulcer in part of it. We have to take that out, so we're going to have two ends of it, and we're going to put the ends back together again. So we have a jejunostomy because we put two ends of the jejunum back together. Now, if you remember, the other word, what was that word we learned just a minute ago? Can you say it? This funny word?
Anastomosis.
Anastomosis. We can also use that word here, and we can say it's either jejunostomy or a jejunal anastomosis. Boy, that's a big long word. Now, if you'll notice, all we're doing is taking the two combining forms, jejuno and jejunal, and putting them together. We'll see that later on. We use that in other body systems. Okay, so review. We take the suffixes here and the combining forms, and we combine them together to make surgical terms. All right? Now, do y'all have any questions?
No.
I think that, well, y'all are such great students. What we're going to do now is an exercise to help you kind of digest that information, no pun intended, but try to get it in your brain so that you can remember those. We're going to do an exercise. We're going to work on it together. Okay?
Sounds great.
All right.